God's love languages. Obedience, submission. That's the other S. Submission, right? Duh, marriage, dual submission. Look, obedience, submission, humility, selflessness, sacrifice, and service. Those are the 6 love languages of God.
One to another in
Come on,
the Lord.
Come on. And it's crazy because if you don't have even one of those, that's why I needed to get the 6th one. Because if you don't have even one of those, it's not God's idea of love, which means that godly love is not at the center of your marriage. Anything less than those 6 things, which is directly taken from scripture, is man's idea of love. All of those things with no submission. All of those things with no humility. All those things with no obedience, with no service, with no selflessness, with no sacrifice. Anything, any one of those that you take out, it creates something
else.
Something else. And you become someone else. It's important. And what I can say is, to my wife's point, this is what I was trying to get at, but I had to find the 6th word.
Submission.
Submit, which is crazy because we spent 6 months studying submission in Ephesians chapter 5, of course.
You gotta submit.
But to my wife's point, I was good with the actions and she had the mental preparedness. And one of the things I'm thankful for is having that mindset, because when we first got married, there were still aspects of my perspective that were operating from a single mentality, a non-married mentality. I wanted to do the things that I wanted to do, and rather than sacrificing them and being selfless and submitting, yes, as the husband, as the head, submitting to God and submitting one toward another, like Ephesians 5:20 says. Instead of doing that, I just wanted my wife to join in what I was doing. But I didn't actually invite her into what I was doing. I just let her know what I was doing and then let her make the, I left it up to her whether she wanted to tag along. So then she wasn't a part of what I was doing. She wasn't in what I was doing. She was attached to what I was doing. And that's a dangerous situation. And I just feel like people need to, I do feel it, but I feel like people need to hear that. A lot of cases, you want to merge your lives. That's not how that works. In the Bible, it says, for this cause, a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. And I think that's imperative, Pastor Tiffany, Ms.Radiant, because we think about that in terms of, he's just coming out of his mom and daddy's home and he's going to cling to his wife. He's no longer doing what his mom and daddy is saying. He's going to build a life with his wife. But it speaks to coming out of the origination, the source of where you are, stepping out of that and cleaving to your wife to build something new. We're talking about building a life together.
Yeah. But
you can't build a life based on an old foundation from a different building. You go build a house, you got to lay a new foundation on. You can't go and drag up the foundation of your old house that you was living in. That's not how that works. And so a lot of people, they build a life together by trying to merge their already existed lives that, if they did things right, was complete on their own with God. That's if they did it right. If they didn't do it,
cleave separate.
No. And if you didn't do it right, then your life is incomplete and you're looking for somebody to complete you, and you're not complete because you're not letting God fill in the gaps of who you are. And then you still taking all that incompleteness, that baggage, all that, trying to merge it. And you want this person to just understand that you had goals before, that you had a career before. Isn't that the stuff you hear? I had a career before you. I had goals and plans before you. I had this and that and this and that and this and that before you. These are the things I like to do. These are the habits. This is the schedule. This is the track that I was on before you. And you're just trying to merge those versus building from scratch. And that was my problem. When we first got married, 21,
it's like
I was a musician.
DIY example is like having, you need a dresser
Oh God.
It's like it's like taking two dressers and trying to put them together side by side. And you saying you cleaving because you're next to each other versus we gonna decide which one to build. And that's gonna be the dresser.
Right.
Because you just became one. And that doesn't make sense.
Ooh, we could even break apart the dressers and build a new, bigger, better dresser.
Yeah.
But you know what we can't do? Nail them two dresses together.
It's gonna look crazy.
It's gonna look crazy and it ain't gonna be sturdy.
And it's crazy because when we first got married, I remember.
That's a good analogy, baby.
This is funny. This is a
Even
real.
though it's a DIY analogy.
Check out Build My Life.
Check out Build My Life DIY channel.
No, it's funny because I remember when we first got married. This is probably one of the only things that this happened with that I can recall.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I ever told you this.
What?
So we first got married. When I moved to Nebraska, we had 2 different irons. Do you realize that? You remember that?
I do remember you bringing an iron from Florida.
And then I had an iron. And
I don't even know why I had an iron.
I had an iron board though. You didn't have an iron board.
No, because I wasn't using the iron.
Right. So I had an iron board that
I was in the military, y'all. So my flight suits, I just threw them in the dryer after I washed them and then hung them up, and they didn't get wrinkled, and that was it.
So I remember. I forget how it came up, but basically, the gist of it was, I'm gonna paraphrase because I don't remember exactly. But I remember it's like, oh, this is your iron, this is my iron.
So I'm gonna iron with my iron.
It wasn't even.
We did have 2 irons. I remember looking at them on the shelves now.
It wasn't even like, Ma saw that we had 2 different irons. Mm-hmm. And somehow it came up and I said something about.
Was I deployed?
I don't know.
Probably.
Somehow it came up that I said, oh, this is my iron, this is Marquise's iron, or something like that. I forget. And I remember her like, what? Like,
that's old school for you.
Like, she was like, she didn't make a big fuss or anything. She just like brought it to my attention. Like, you got an iron and your husband got an iron. Like, why do y'all have 2 separate irons? Or something like, why do you have 2 separate ones? Or is really both irons are yours? Both of y'all irons? Like, something like that. And it dawned on me, I was like, snap. Like, I got a separate iron and my husband has a separate iron, even though we don't operate like, oh, this is mine and this is yours.
Like that, no.
Or we gotta have, separate bank accounts, or we gotta have separate cars.
No, that's never been us.
No, so, but in that one, I mean, we might do that with food now. But in that one...
Don't eat my crackers.
In that one area, I was like, snap. We got 2 separate irons. I don't know. I guess it just dawned on me at that moment. Like, I didn't realize it. And it seemed petty. But I didn't realize how much I wasn't paying attention to the fact that we had something separate. And because I brought mine, you had yours. And I don't know if, like, deep down I was, like, trying to, like, hold on to independence some kind. I don't know. I don't think that was the case, but it was, I think when she brought it to my attention, me, I was just like, oh, let me like check myself through and through to make sure that this is not coming from a certain place. And it's like, you know what? We don't got no separate irons. Like,
right.
What's mine is yours and what's yours is mine in every aspect.
And I definitely didn't go, oh, I need to iron something. Which one is mine? Let me pick
But I'm
that.
pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I always used my iron.
Wow. I definitely. Well, I also wasn't ironing nothing, though.
Okay. If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure I used mine. And it's not that you couldn't use mine, but I wasn't trying to use yours.
Right.
And then I think I might have got rid of mine, like, I'm just being dramatic, like, no, we ain't gonna have no separate.
Right. Well, this is the point, right? But this is one of the reasons I brought up that time period, as far as my perspective is, and still approaching things like from the perspective of a single mentality, is my entire life I've been known as the musician, singer, drummer, producer, organist, whatever, musician. So that was a defining attribute of how I understood myself. I knew that I was a musician, and I knew that I had a call to the office of prophet on my life, and both of those started at 7.
I wonder what's the difference though, because like what was the difference in our approach?
But I wouldn't say there was a difference, and this is why. Because when I really think about, and I think I'm really having this realization now as I hear you talk about the stuff with the iron, because that's not something you ever told me, or something, see, after 11 years, still stuff that we didn't know from
I didn't even think
day
about
one
saying
and
it.
year one. Right. It's not something that but that's a realization that you had that informed how you approached our marriage. Right. And in that realization, that now teaches me, I mean, like, this is fresh and hot off the press right now. It's teaching me and showing me a different way, even in how God used you to shape me in that stage. Because if I think about it, my desire to cling to the way that I did things, the way I operated and moved as a musician in those early stages, sometimes to the detriment of the time that we would spend together, or the relationship that we should have been building as husband and wife in those first several months, was because of an unconscious, and I think that's the same for you with the iron symbol, an unconscious connection to and desire. I don't even think I was like, it has to be unconscious, because I wasn't trying to maintain independence. I didn't feel like marriage meant I had to be, like I had to assert independence in marriage, right? I understood that marriage required accountability and those kinds of things, and blendedness and all that stuff. But in terms of identity, like not wanting to relinquish this aspect of myself that I understood as defining me. It didn't define me. And me not playing an instrument or singing or being a part of that particular scene or context for however long doesn't redefine me. It doesn't change the fact that I'm the musician, the singer, the drummer, the organist, whatever. But in my mind, that defining attribute was, I need to be up in somebody's church playing. I need to be up in somebody's rehearsal. I need to be gigging. I need to be preparing for somebody's recording. All things I did in the first year of our marriage, right? All things I did in 2011. And so clinging to that to the point where it would cause rifts between us, because you were wanting more of me because you came to Nebraska to build a life.
Build my life.
Build my life. And I was thinking in terms of, like I said earlier, merging lives.
But I had already gone through, I think what it might have been, I already gone through, look, the shedding. No.
The cleaving.
And
the leaving and cleaving. Yeah.
But for me, it was quick. Because we could get into this like another time, because this is getting into some other stuff. But for me, it was quick. I asked you, I said, hey, do you want me to come? You said, yeah, you want me to come, so I don't need to be here. So that thought process was quick. It's like, we're
Tell them
married.
where you was coming from and where you was going, because they might not understand.
What do you mean?
Where were you at when?
Oh, when I was in Bethune-Cookman University, majoring in international studies.
In Daytona Beach.
In Daytona Beach, Florida. And he was in the military in Omaha, Nebraska. Yeah, I can say that right.
Yeah,
okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, so I was in Florida, and I
finishing your semester, and
finishing the last half of the year in my second year of school, my bachelor's degree.
And we had originally planned when we got married for her to finish school and finish her degree in Florida.
Yeah, I was gonna finish like the next year though. I was gonna, based on how I had my
the
stuff
way,
set up,
based on the way your course schedule was set
and
up.
I end up doing the same thing anyways,
which is hilarious.
crazy. I end up doing the same
I'll be
thing,
collapsing time, I'm telling you.
taking mad classes to finish anyways. So we were already married at that point for 2 months.
Right.
And I was there, you was in Nebraska, and I don't know why I asked you.
You came to visit in April. We got married in March, and then you came to visit in April, and then you moved there into May. But
I think when I asked you, I hadn't visited.
I don't think so.
Yet
I don't think so. No.
In April. But the point is, I asked you. I was like, "Do you want me to come?" And you was like, "Yeah." And that was at the end of the conversation. I started
hacking.
I started the whole process.
Yeah.
I gave away all my clothes. I had some nice clothes, but in my mind, I don't need these sandals I needed the sandals. So Nebraska does have hot days, and I'm thinking it's just going to be winter.
Cold.
But I gave away all my clothes. I got my letter of recommendations. My professors was excited that I was going to go to another school, and so they was like, yeah, whatever. And, yeah, I went through that.
You went through the process, and that was a leaving process
of this life, or the life that I was building for myself was there.
And see, I
left that, but the life it sort of came with you.
Right.
That's where you were building your life.
I was already building, and I think the thing for me was, when you came to Nebraska, I didn't have that shedding, leaving, cleaving moment because I was in the military. I was already doing those different things.
But you had already left.
I've left New York.
Yeah, you
and
left
music and those different things.
But you didn't leave there going somewhere else to be married.
Right, but this is the point. Yeah.
You didn't leave there.
We're not going to talk about that. This is whatever. This is the point, though. This is the point. The point being that when I left, and when I got settled, because when I left New York, I still had to stop in San Antonio and then go to Washington State. So by the time I got to Nebraska, I wasn't going to Nebraska with marriage on my mind. By that time, that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
So for me, it was, I already left the music, I already left these other different things. I'm building my life, but in my perspective, it was, I want to get back to the things that I feel like make me me, because I've been without them through basic training, through tech school, through survival school, all that stuff. So first chance I got, that's why I was on my way to Guitar Center. When I got the car, and they literally, I got the car in January, I was at Guitar Center in March, and the only reason I was at Guitar Center in March and not January is because they did not open that Guitar Center until March.
Wow.
And I knew if I could get to Guitar Center, I could play some drums, I could play some piano, and I'll probably meet some other musicians in the area. And that was a big part of how I understood myself.
But I also think that's indicative of like our personalities, how we approached it, because, and I won't get into, psychoanalysis or
which you are really good at,
any of those things, but I realized that from a very, very young, I've always had to have, and I feel like I do it sometimes now in my adulthood too, if I'm transparent, but I feel like a lot of times I've had to, it's very easy for me to just forget stuff. I hate the way this sounds, but it's true. Forget stuff, forget places, and forget people. It's very easy. No, I'm not trying to say it like a negative way, and I shouldn't say, what I'm trying to say is, this sounds even worse. But I feel like it explains it better, but it might sound worse. Having the ability to move on. Like, this is no longer the place that I'm in.
Or the people I'm
with. Or the people that I'm with. Now I'm here. And I had to do that because of, or in my mind, I had to do it this is crazy because of the environment that I grew up in as a child. My parents were separated, so leaving one home to go to another, and then leaving one home to go to another, I wouldn't have been able to, I guess, function in a healthy way
if you were clingy.
If I was right, there was no way that I could be. And I think, I don't know, I feel like God always gave me like just these crazy realizations just about life, and just so I was able to, whenever I was dealing with a negative situation, I was always able to just say, okay, well, I know this is terrible, I know this sucks, but look at this side. Like, what about this can I not be so mad or upset about? Because it's not going to change it. It's not going to do nothing. I can't change the situation, but I have to make the best of where I'm at. So if I'm going to make the best of where I'm at, I can't be stuck to where I was. Even if I miss it, even if I'm sad, I have to be able to move on from that place.
I always think it's crazy because we usually come from different contexts or different starting points, but we arrive at the same place. I think that blows my mind because it's usually the opposite. Like, the way I'm built, I too have that ability to move on. But when you move on, you make the place you move on the same place you came from to make it feel home. That's also true.
But
you don't.
It's like, okay, we starting fresh. Like,
here's the other thing though. I've also
just talking now,
right, but it's all about marriage, and it really does have to do with that first year of bringing. It's dissecting what it takes to bring ourselves together in that first point of marriage, which is really the first question that you asked, which is crazy. So this could be part 2 and 3, whatever. But I have an easier time remembering. Like you said, it's easy for you to forget and those different things. I have literally from like 5, 6, 7 years old, before I would go to bed, if I couldn't sleep, which if I had I did have a vivid imagination, I still do. So I'm like, okay, I'm not necessarily sleepy right now or at this very second. So I'm laying in the bed. I would do things at 5 and 6, like name in my mind all the people I know before I went to bed, just because I was bored.
And that's crazy because I didn't do that. That's insane.
What are you about to say to me right now?
I didn't do that. Like, for memory, I remember, and this is crazy, I should have known then. It's like, I mean, I didn't know what I didn't know, but I remember laying in the bed, going to sleep, and I remember not being able to go to sleep because I would start praying. And when I started praying, I felt like I couldn't stop praying because I started praying for all the people that I knew.
That's hilarious.
So
I was just trying to remember their names, and you over here praying.
And I would call out their names. No, I would call out.
Intercessor.
But that's it. And I would think,
you should have known.
Exactly. I should have known. But I'm like,
apostolic, praying for the peoples and the nations across the world and the land.
And I would start praying, and I'm like, honestly, if I'm transparent, and this is wrong, I would just be like, when is this gonna be over? Like, when is it gonna be? Yes, when is it gonna be over? But when am I gonna be like, feel the release of not praying for the next person that I know? Because I know a lot of people. So I would be thinking about my aunt and then her kids and then their friends and then this person.
It would just grow. It would just
go. And I would be like, just praying. Like,
right. But this is at 5 years old, I could name I could call out by name in my mind like 126 people. I'm not even joking. 126 people as a 5-year-old, including kids, parents, pastors, friends of my mom and dad, whatever.
I don't know what
we was doing, but I would do that. And I would remember when I called out a name, I had a memory attached to each person. So it wasn't just 126 names or 126 faces. It was 126 events, memories, context, environments. And so what I began to develop naturally was, when I think of a person's name, and this is what bugs me out and annoys me sometimes, I can remember a name and I like, oh, I know that name, but I can't put a face or a place or an event with that. And that's how I was able to do, even for anybody who's following Prophetic Sound Productions, that's how I was able to do My Incredible Journey, because all of those different episodes was events, people, places, and memories that I had attached to them.
Wow.
So for me, it was always easy for me to remember and the memory of a thing. Like, even if I had to move, because we moved around a lot too, but it was for ministry. I'm like, I don't want to forget the lessons I learned, the people I knew, the context, the environments that I had, those interactions. So I'm going to make sure to commit them to memory when I lived in this place. Who are the people I know from Valdosta? Who are the people I know from Fayetteville? Who are the people I know from Poughkeepsie? And as I got older, I had to start grouping all the people I knew by name, by city. And I would continue to do that. So for me, because that was a part of who I was, when I went to the military and I was away from everything and everyone I know, I felt very much so detached. And this is the point that I wanted to get to, because a lot of people will feel like, oh, marriage is just like any of the other kinds of things where you have to start over or build fresh. Let me tell you, that is not the case, because I went through the tearing. I went through the leaving when I went to the military. But that had nothing to do with the leaving and the cleaving I had to do for marriage. Full circle. So I left those people. I left those contexts where I was doing all the church stuff and whatever different stuff. But because I wasn't leaving it for marriage and to build a life with someone else brand new, then when I got settled in Nebraska in the beginning of 2011, my focus was, now I want to reestablish those things that I haven't had this entire year that I was transitioning into the military.
Toby.
This is us reference. This is us reference. Yes. And so the point is, it's like, okay, I want to incorporate those good things that I remember from whatever other into this new life that I've built for myself. And I didn't go through or realize that bringing you into that was attaching you on the back end. I didn't know or realize how that would make you feel, being an attachment, an accessory to the life, even though it's new life, still new military life, but the life that I built, and thinking about the fact that I built that life just months before you moved there.
That's crazy.
Because I remember that it's like, okay, I went and I met these people. I sat in this rehearsal. I did these things. And it's literally when you come in, I know these people, but you don't. And I'm focused on building the relationships I just started with these people and wanting you to be incorporated in the relationships I decided to build with these other people. And you came to Nebraska to build a relationship with me because we're building our lives together. But we're supposed to be building our lives together, and I'm building the life that I started building 2 months before you got there. And that being because building that life with musical connections and church affiliations and connecting with people who understand the same little churchy jokes and the churchanese and the vernacular, and that's that environment. You know, shout out to the Kojic people in Omaha, Nebraska, all them good folks. And the music, understanding the musical terms as a musician from New York. So I got that little bit of clout there as coming in as a musician from New York that sings, that plays the drums, that plays the keys and the organ and produces and all of that stuff. So having all of those different things and being valued for those different things and celebrated for those different things, that's how I understood myself to be defined. That's not how I was defined. That's a message there. But that's how I understood myself to be defined. So trying to cultivate that and cling to that, because that's how I see myself being valued and validated. That was my iron. Full circle. That was my iron. That was the thing that I brought into the marriage that was my own. Again, thanks be to God that above wanting that communal validation and celebration in the musical sphere of the church or the churchified sphere of the church, more than any of those things, I wanted to please God. And I'm thankful that, because there was a point, I'm going to be transparent, and this is going to free somebody. That's the only reason I'm being transparent to y'all, because I don't know y'all, but I believe this will free somebody.
Yeah.
I loved and I desired that, if I'm honest, more than I desired to please my wife. That's a fact. That's why there would be situations where, full transparency, you didn't want me to go to the rehearsal, to the concert, to the church service, to the revival, to play, or to sit near the musician section in the hopes that I would be able to play. Some cases, yeah, because I was just itching to play because I hadn't played drums or keys in a year. And that was like the first time that had ever happened in my entire life. This is 21 years old. And that's like the first year I went without playing some kind of musical something or singing with somebody's church something or being in somebody's church revival. And doing that, I desired that more than I was focused on making you happy or pleasing you. So it wasn't that, but I'm thankful to God. And the reason I survived that foolishness is because more than that, I had a desire to please God. And when I realized, when the rifts happened and the friction or the tension would develop because I'm doing the foolishness and nonsense that I'm doing because I hadn't cleaved and hadn't left, then God would begin tapping on the back of my brain like, but you got to fix that. And I'm not pleased, because he would remind me of scriptures, memory. He would remind me of scriptures like, a man that does not rule his house well is not fit for the kingdom. So how you gonna go and lead praise and worship and lead on the instruments and say you are called to be a prophet since 7 years old and tell the people the story of you playing in the tree and then God and me quoting Jeremiah 1:5-8 to you and then you going to your mama and telling her that you realize you called to be a prophet and you tied to her? How you gonna tell people that but your house is jacked up? Hypocrite. How you gonna tell people that and you're married, your wife came here for you and is getting an empty house because she don't want to go smile in those people's faces who are excited because of what you bring to, what value you bring to their musical context, their church context, but who don't know you enough to value you and don't know you enough to value your wife.
Who don't want to value you?
Who don't want to value your wife? Because they ain't trying to, oh, y'all are new to the area. Give me your wife's number or tell your wife to call me so that we can hang out because I know she's new to the area.
Yeah, that
That never happened. Yeah. Because people's focus was, oh, you sing and play, come sing and play for us. Do this for me.
And in their defense,
That's no shots to any particular person.
No, that's no shots.
But it is what it is also.
It is what it is. Our lives, like we said, we got married very early.
I didn't get to us just being ahead.
So our lives has always been, although, which is funny, very traditional, but non-traditional.
It's so non-traditional for this time, for this era.
Yeah. So it's a lot of things that we were doing, a lot of, like, the fact that we were married made us separate
and oddballs,
right? Anyways, because people our age, they just were not.
In the 70s, we would have been just like everybody else, baby. Holiness and married,
right? But a lot of people our age, they weren't married.
No. So
the processes and the maturity levels that we had come to, a lot of people, although our age, although older, whatever the case may be, they just didn't come to. So I think, I mean, you can't indict people for, you can, but where are you going to get in trying to indict people for where they're not, where they don't know to be, where God hasn't allowed them to be.
Where God
but
hasn't
He
allowed
you to be.
Right.
So
absolutely,
that's that. But on the flip side, you know, because, you know, some people might be saying, well, she should just understand, and a woman gotta support.
You not married, is you?
A woman gotta support.
You not married, is you?
Oh,
you still waiting on your husband,
man,
ain't you? You still waiting on your wife, ain't you?
Right. You know, you gotta support your man and everything, and blah blah blah. And just as he went through his process, I went through mine, because I'm not perfect either. There's some things I had to deal with internally in my responses, and how I felt and how I acted, whether even with being right. How you respond with your rightness is important, because you will then be wrong.
Say that again.
How you respond to your rightness matters, because if you don't do it the right way, you'll be wrong.
That's crazy. I love that.
And I had to realize that, because initially, to give a little bit more context,